I'm wearing my glasses, I'm wearing a polo shirt. I think it's time to do some science. So, seeing as we actually have these smart targets, we thought we'd do some scientific testing. Well, as much as we can make it scientific testing. The idea is to see which is the easiest for target acquisition at kind of standard engagement ranges. So the middle target will give us 5 exposures, and we'll each take it in turns to shoot it with iron sights, and then red dot, and then finally with magnified optics, and figure out from the averages of that which is the quickest for target acquisition. So what I failed to mention while standing in the cold in Wales, am I focused? I think so. So what I failed to mention while I was standing in the cold in Wales was the targets that we're shooting at is 25 metres away. So for the process we're going to be using my handy dandy G&G L85A2. So here it is with iron sights on. Now I believe the front sight's actually the ICS one. I don't know where the G&G one is, but it worked. And the different sights we're going to be using is, well, iron sights, red dot EOTech style rifle, and then a SUSAT. Although it has to be said, the SUSATs, for whatever reason, no matter how much you adjust the sight over to the left, the BBs still go slightly to the left of the post. But everyone knew that, and everyone had practiced. Well, everyone had a go with the sight beforehand, so they knew kind of where to put the sight to aim. Also, interestingly, before we look at this, Scott mainly, well, has never played with anything other than iron sights. Alice tends to only play with red dots, and she'll play with iron sights, but she doesn't like magnified optics. And I pretty much exclusively play with magnified optics. So let's see how it goes from there. So let's just jump straight back to Wales and jump straight into the first test. Off you go. And that's the round.
I've actually used the iron sight. I've actually used it. Expectations are low. Cheating!
I'm just checking.
Cheating!
Right, so I've collected all the data from the system. Hopefully I can put some images in now. Basically, the attack sense targets are able to give you player data at the end. So each of us had a player ID card, this fancy little thing, with QR code on the back. So before we did each test, we blipped our ID card so the system knew it was us, and then we run through the test. Then afterwards, meant I could just scroll through the tablet, look at previous player results, and pull out the data. Now, unfortunately, because this was a development version of the software, for some reason or another, the graph wouldn't tell me the exact data. So all I could get was worst shot, best shot. Oh, sorry, worst reaction time, best reaction time, and average. But that's pretty much good enough for us. So these results here are all using the average reaction time for across the 5 shots, which is pretty much what I was going to do anyway. I have been speaking to the guys, and they are fixing that bug, and hopefully from now on the software. Actually, I think they'd already fixed it, but I had an earlier version of the dev, so the software should tell you if you click on the graph what the reaction time for that shot was. Anyway, scores on the doors, and hopefully there should be graphs appearing now. If we look at just the raw times, Scott was exceptionally fast at iron sights. Funny that, he always plays with them. And Alice and I were very close together with our kind of average iron sight reaction time. With Scott coming in at 1.75 seconds from low ready to hit the target. And Alice and I about 3/4 of a second behind him at both around 2.5 seconds. Things change, however, when we go up to red dots. Now, Alice and I have both used red dots, and Scott hasn't, which probably explains why Scott then jumps from 1.75 up to 3.7 seconds. And then Scott kind of claws it back again when we go to magnified optics. Now, I like magnified optics. Scott is indifferent, and Alice doesn't particularly like them, and I think that reflects. So I'm slower with the scope, so I go up to 2.7 seconds average. Alice goes up to 2.8 seconds average, and Scott joins Alice at 2.8 seconds average. Yeah. Which is understandable, actually, because, well, we can talk about this in a bit, but I can kind of understand why that happened and why there is a jump up from red dot to optic. So if we look at that as a percentage change as opposed to just raw times, we can see Scott almost doubles his reaction time between iron sights and red dots, and Alice and I both drop our reaction speeds by about 20%, so we're 20% faster with red dots. However, we flip that over with magnified optics. I'm 6.5% slower, and Alice is pretty much 10% slower with magnified optics as opposed to iron sights, and Scott is 50% slower with optics as opposed to iron sights. So again, we're seeing that you're getting red dots seem to be the fastest for that sort of range acquisition. Annoyingly, I should have done another test with a further away target to see how it goes then. But I'm an idiot, forgot to do that one. So the reason I selected the L85, not only because I had optics that fit this, both iron sight, red dot and magnified, I also picked it because the iron sights on the L85 are particularly good, at least I like them, and we all have experience with them. So Scott and I were both in the cadets, so shot the R98 with the real iron sights on, and Alice has used this rifle and this setup before several times, so knows these iron sights, so it kind of gives us a bit of a level playing field there. But the reason you're going to be slow with iron sights is because you have to bring up your gun, find your target, and get down on the gun, find your rear iron sight, which is this lovely big ghost ring style sight, then find your front sight through that, and then line that up with your target, and then take your shot. Which means you have technically 4 points of aim, which is eye, rear iron sight, front iron sight, target, that you have to line up. Now with a red dot, you only have 3 points of aim because you've got eye, red dot, target. The other benefit of a red dot is you've got a much larger window to view that sight through. So you can see I'm moving this around quite a lot, and you've got target acquisition on me, on my eye actually. I can show you, oh, it's going to be a tricky one to do. Okay, that should be aiming at me, but as soon as I start wibbling it around, you're losing that point of aim quite quickly. So that will account for your slow speed. And finally, let's talk about good old SUSAT or magnified optics. Now, normally with magnified optics, especially Airsoft clones, you've got quite a narrow window where you can see through them clearly. Oh, there you go. There you go. There's the pillar. See, you lose it quite quickly. So SUSAT especially, you've only got a couple of mil of movement before it's in and out of focus, and only a couple of mil of head move before you lose your aiming point. And again, it's quite hard because effectively you haven't got just a single window here. You've got a tube that you need to line up yourself with to look through that whole tube to then find your target. So you go back to that kind of more points of aim, even though it's not, because it's eye, optic, target, but really it's eye, rear optic in line, or eye, rear optic, field of view kind of thing. It's kind of hard to count the number of, but effectively it's like you can't look through a sight if you're offset. You've got to be straight on with the sight. So again, it's bring it up, find the sight, get yourself in the way you can see the sight and see the pillar and then see the target. So what have we learnt from all this? We've learnt what I think I already knew, which is you really don't need magnified optics for Airsoft unless you're playing in a kind of sniper or a DMR role where you're engaging people at 60 meters plus, where it's not necessary, but it's nice to be able to have an optic because you can watch the BB fly out there, especially if you're only firing 1 or 2 shots a second or less if you're bolt action. You can watch it and see how it flies at the end of its trajectory, and from that, correct for your next shot if you happen to miss your target, which in Airsoft is a bloody lot, or at least it is for me. I miss my targets a lot. However, if you're just running and gunning and running like, CQB weapon, support weapon, just standard assault rifle, there is no need for a magnified optic unless, you're running it as part of an impression kit, or you really just want to run a magnified optic. However, as the results show, even if you use a magnified optic all the time, you're still going to be faster using a red dot. And that's what I recommend. If you're playing Airsoft and you've just got a standard gun, you're not running as a DMR, you're not running as a sniper, either use your iron sights or get a red dot. There is no need to have a magnified optic, unless of course you really want one, in which case, hey, it's a free country, free game, do whatever you want with it. I wish it was a free game. Anyway, I think that'll do it for this week's episode. I hope you've enjoyed this very sciencey experiment that I've done. One thing I will note is it was bloody cold, and don't know if the hot pup rubber was a bit too cold to begin with, which might explain. If you watch some of the clips, you can see the BBs just drop slightly, and we had to fire a couple of shots occasionally. But hey ho, same boat for everyone. Yeah, hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, consider dropping a like or subscribing if you haven't already. Or drop a comment down below how you think my scientific method was bollocks, because it is. Also, news. I have a Facebook page now, which will be linked down below, where you can message me, maybe, or suggest ideas for things, or interact with posts I put up there. I think that'll do it for this episode, so see you next week. Ooh. Again, a huge thank you to Attack Sense, or the guys at Attack Sense, for letting me borrow their dev kit, or some of their dev kit I should say, for to have a play with and do these tests. It's been a lot harder to do without that. Proper Parker, and I'm eternally grateful. As is Alice and as is Scott. And as soon as I get a garden big enough, I'm buying a set. You've heard that. Sorry, everyone's heard that now. I am buying a set when I have a garden, because out that window is a garden about this big. And I can't use it for Airsoft, which sucks. I need a new house. Anyway, au revoir. You're still here? But the video's over. It's done. Go home. Oh wait, before you do, instead, why don't you consider watching one of my other videos, or even subscribing on the link down below.